Thank you for letting me come to talk, actually. Like Will said at the beginning, it's true. I am really happy that I can come help and have some kind of sense that maybe my story will help you through your journey as well. I have to say, though, it is a little bit strange to be up here, because when Will asked me if I wanted to give a talk, I kind of chuckled to myself because I thought, I'm not that old. I'm not too far out of MAPSS, and, if I think about it, I could probably use some career advice of my own. But I think, like most things in the world, timing is everything. And it just happens that in the past year, I've had career and jobs and things on my mind quite a bit. So I've had some time to reflect. And I do have some things that are worth sharing, I think. They're not, I'm going to warn you up front, they're not grand career secrets. I'm not, when I lose the rest of my hair, maybe I'll be able to deliver those. But they're kind of small insights that I've gotten on my journey. So before I go to them, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. So I'm going to take you do a little bit of history tour for me. So this is me. Pre-MAPSS, I'm feeling good. I'm a few years out of college. I've done some cool things, traveled a little bit. I'm really feeling good. You know what? I have a laser-like focus, and pretty much I'm feeling good because I think I have it all figured out. I've got one thing on my mind: PhD. I think it's going to be maybe a recurrent theme through this, and it sounds like from the raise of hands in here, it's a similar feeling that a lot of you are in. But that was my focus. That was I was going to do. I was pretty sure I had it all figured out. So, it was like I was ready to start and I was eager. 1 year later, here's me again. Obviously, a few things had changed. Like you've all been through, we've been through the same thing. It's an intense year. It was an intense year for me. I was burned out. I lived on the north side of Chicago. I traveled down here. I was tired, basically. I was essentially tired. There was one thing that was similar, though. I still had only one thought on my mind. It was a different question this time. You could say basically that at that point in my life, I was confused. I had thought I had it all figured out. At this point, I had nothing figured out. In some ways, it was a bad feeling. In some ways, it was one of the best things that MAPSS did for me because I needed to have my thoughts of what I was going to do with the rest of my life displaced because I think it was a good thing for me. Maybe I was naive at first, but it was good that I kind of wondered what I was going to do. But it wasn't as helpful. So what I did at that point, I kind of did the normal things. I think what everyone does. You go to the Career Center. I went to U of C's Career Center. I read some of the books that are out there on careers. I did the Myers-Briggs, normal things. A lot of people do all those things. I talked to some people, tried to do informational interviews. But essentially what I did after that is I took the first job that I got. I mean, it's not abnormal. So I transitioned into that to working at a nonprofit in Chicago. It's a scholarship organization. It had a really great location on the top floor of its corporate donor in downtown Chicago. Good experience. A good experience. I moved on from there. My wife got into a graduate program in Milwaukee. I'd never been to Milwaukee. I wasn't sure why she wanted to ever go to Milwaukee, which was an industrial wasteland, I thought, in my mind, but it's actually quite beautiful. But I went to work. I got fortunate again. I got very lucky with these jobs. I went to work at Marquette University. I'd lived abroad for a couple of years, so I worked in their international office, marketing. I wasn't particularly a marketer, but it just kind of worked in. It kind of fell into place. It wasn't really a plan, but it worked out. But I moved from there to a different job in the same office, doing a study abroad coordinator. All of these jobs along the way, I was lucky to get. I mean, I felt happy to get them every job that I got. But there was just something missing. I mean, this is what you could say. For that span of my life in those jobs, I kind of was like this. I was a worker. I was in office. I was just an office worker, I wasn't totally fulfilled. Now, that was really me. It wasn't the jobs. Because what had happened, at least in the first two jobs, I was so hung up on the idea that I needed to have a career, that I needed to have a career path. I took both of those jobs knowingly. I mean, I was excited to get them. Every time you get a job offer, you're excited. But I took them thinking, you know what, this is not my career. This is a job I'm going to take until I figure my career out. Because this is not a career path job, like a marketer. I don't like marketing particularly. So I was like, I'll take it. It's kind of a cool job, but it's not my career path. I'm going to figure that out pretty quickly. The last job was a little bit different. Actually, after the first two, I said, you know what? I'm ready to figure out my career. I like study abroad. I like international things. I'm going to be in study abroad. Study abroad is going to be my career. I'm going to take it as far as it'll go, and I'm going to like it. The only problem was, when I got into the job, I just didn't like it as much as I thought I would. It just wasn't a good fit for me. So at that point, I was pretty frustrated. I was like, you know what? I don't think I've gotten much further than when I started after MAPSS. I'm kind of back at square one. So what am I going to do? I I was freaking out a little bit more at this point than I was after MAPSS because it was a little bit later in my life. But I wasn't totally in crisis mode, but I was freaking out a little bit. So again, I said, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to not jump in and fall into the same traps and jump ahead, but I need to kind of figure this out. So I did the same things again. I did try to do informational interviews. I tried to get advice from people. I did some, more personality test type things. It was helpful. It was somewhat helpful, but I was kind of stuck. I was kind of frustrated. And then kind of, for me, a light bulb went off. And it came in the form of a piece of advice. And the basic advice is very similar to what Will said. The basic advice was relax. It's from a woman that I was talking to. She said, you know what, Blake, you just really need to relax. And relax can be the most annoying advice you'll ever get in your life. In different situations in my life, people have told us, just relax, just relax. And when you can't relax, you can't relax. I mean, I understand that. For me, it was the right thing at the right time. I heard it, it sunk in, it really worked for me. What she said was, Blake, you really just need to relax. You know what? You have your whole life to figure out what you're going to do, or to do something. Because I had this idea in my mind that, I have something great in me. There's this perfect job out there. There's a perfect fit out for me, and I'm going to have some huge impact. She said, you know what? You have your whole life to do that. You could be 55 and then find that thing and make that great impact that you're thinking about. But that doesn't mean along the way you can't do some really interesting things and have a real good impact anyway, even if it doesn't feel like just the perfect thing for you. And so, for me, that really sunk in. And so at that point I said, you know what, let me get rid of that idea of I have to have a career. I have to have the career job now. And let me think more about what I really want to do, what I find interesting. And so I started applying to some jobs. And I found the one that I'm in now. I work in the research office for the Milwaukee Public Schools. You can tell that I like education. I've done some education jobs. And, I've appreciated the job I have now more than any of my other jobs. It's not particularly a better job. It's not a particularly better place to work. But I just appreciate it because I look at it in a very different way. And the really ironic thing is that I'm 100% certain that this job is not my career. I'm going to move on to something else. And I'm going to find out something that's probably even a better fit for me down the road. But this job will help me get there, and all the jobs that I've had since then will help me get there. So that's kind of my story up to this point. And the insights now that I want to share with you come from that journey. It's not a super long one. I'm not at the end of my career. I'm very at the beginning of my career. But here's some of the things that I think can help you. So number one, your career is going to be a series of interesting jobs. Even if you're one of those people who wants to be a tenured PhD, that will be a series of interesting jobs as well. I've worked with a lot of those people. They come in being teachers, maybe. They move on to being a dean, or they work in a director in an office. Even within, like a doctor. Doctors have a variety of different jobs throughout their career. So a career doesn't have to be a specific job or a specific title. It will be a series of interesting jobs. And if you look at it like that, you don't feel so much stress about taking one or taking the other one. It all leads somewhere. The nice thing about having a series of jobs is it gives you versatility. I really think that's important. It gives you, I worked with study abroad students, and it's what I kind of call cultural competence. I did this pre-orientation for them and say, you're not going to know everything about the place you go, but the more places you've been, the more you are aware of what culture is, the better you can adapt once you're there. And I think it's the same place for work. The more places you work, the more different people you work with, especially the different types of people you work with, the different skills you have will help you go on to the next job, and you'll be even more successful in your next job. So I think that versatility is really important. The other thing about the versatility I think is important is it allows you to understand what you like to do. And that brings me to my second point. It's just as important to think about what you like to do as what you want to be. I know they're interrelated, but I'll give you the story of my wife. Like most wives, she's smarter than her husband, and she did it the right way. She's a speech pathologist now. One of those kind of career jobs. She's not going to be anything other than a speech pathologist probably, maybe in different venues, but she didn't come out saying, I want to be a speech pathologist. She said, I like to work with people. I don't like sitting behind a desk. I know that doesn't work for me. I have language skills. I really want to use my language skills. I like kids. I really like working with kids. And she said, what jobs fit those things that I like to do? Now there's 500 different jobs she could have chosen. She chose speech pathology, which is a really good one for her. But she could have done a variety of different things. And I think that if you think more about what you want to do, what you like to do, what your strengths are, what your skills are, it is less limiting because you don't get stuck on one title or one job. There's a lot of jobs that use a lot of the same skills, And if you know what those skills are that you really like to do, you'll have more options. And it's important to know that you'll have options, because my third point is that you are in high demand. You know, I'm not here to stoke your ego or anything, but it's true. You are in high demand. In all of my work experience, I can tell you there's a limited supply of talented people out there. It's just the truth. It might not seem like it when you're at the University of Chicago. As someone who went here for college also, as well as a graduate degree, you know, you're surrounded by the cream of the crop. I mean, everyone in this room is talented by nature of being in the MAPSS program. You're smart, you're innovative, and there just aren't that many people out there like that. So I think it's very important that you remember that as you go into any career search, because that's a big part of it. And the main point I want to say about this is that don't let HR places or HR offices be your roadblock. I don't know what's wrong with HR in general. I mean, apologies if you want to be in HR, but especially where I work now, like a place like the Milwaukee Public Schools, a huge bureaucracy, you know, tons of employees, HR is kind of separate. They're crazy, to be honest with you. We have an internship, and I sent it out to all of you students. I hope you got it from Will that they're trying to hire. And one clause in it said you have to be 2 years removed from your undergraduate degree. And I tried to argue with them and said there's a lot of talented people who are more than 2 years out. And they're like, no, that's the rules. The board approved it. So, I mean, what I would say to you is always, always, always email who's going to be your supervisor. Send them your resume. Send them your cover letter. Even if you think it's annoying, do it anyway. If they think it's annoying, you don't want to work there. If they like that, it's the kind of place you want to work. Do it. Send it to your supervisor. And because every time I've been on the other end of the hiring spectrum, I've been shocked at how much my bosses are hungry for better applicants, for more talented applicants. And that doesn't mean that you have exactly all the skills. You have the 7 years in an office setting with knowing this specific software. You're all smart enough to learn all of it. Don't be intimidated by that. Really don't be. I was intimidated by that for a long time. It was a big mistake. But I would say definitely don't be intimidated. And so you can learn it. Trust me, you can learn it. There's nothing out there that's that difficult. So email your supervisor. Let them know that you're talented, that you went to the University of Chicago. It might not get you a second look, but you're more likely to get it that way than going through an online application. I mean, you still have to do that, but that's kind of my last piece of advice. So again, I'm very happy to share. I've gotten advice from a lot of people and a lot of help along the way. So, you know, if you come to my panel, I'll give you all my information. You can ask me any question you want anytime. Thank you.